Hello, everybody. This is Carol Maletta. Welcome to the Parenting 411 podcast, where we share information parents need from sources they can trust. As we head into the holiday season, I thought it would be a good idea to take a look at family connections and how to strengthen relationships so that everyone thrives. In particular, I want to talk about blended families. Today's episode features an interview from my archives with someone who knows a lot about blended families. Take a listen. Our theme this month is home and family, and we're going to close it out by taking a look at blended families in today's show, Home and Family Part 2, One Mother's Recipe for a Blended Family. So, what is a blended family? The Cambridge Dictionary defines it as a family that consists of two adults, the children or child that they have had together, and one or more children that they have had with previous partners. Now, blended families are not exactly a new phenomenon. In real life, it has been happening for decades. Often it followed the death of a spouse, leaving a widow or a widower with young children to raise alone, or after a divorce. We've also seen art imitate life with popular television shows like My Three Sons and The Brady Bunch, if we want to go way back. And later we had Full House, and still more recently we have Modern Family and Shameless, all of which feature blended families. Popular movies featuring blended families include Six, With Six You Get Egg Roll, and Yours, Mine, and Ours, both the original, starring Lucille Ball and Henry Fonda, and the remake with Dennis Quaid and Rene Russo. Some of these pieces take you through the story with an amusing mishap here or there, but they all end up wrapped with the bow of a happy ending, indicating smooth sailing off into the sunset. The reality is the journey to that point can be challenging. Just thinking about Cinderella's plight and her family strikes fear into the hearts of some where blended families are concerned. Yet, according to a Pew Research Center analysis, statistics show that blended families are on the rise. About 40% of all new marriages in the U.S. include at least one person who was previously married. Among adults who are presently married, nearly a quarter, or 23%, have been married before, compared with 13% in 1960. According to the National Center for Family and Marriage Research, 63% of women who remarry come into blended families, with half of those couples having stepchildren who live with them. My guest today knows a lot about this. Reverend Dana Porter Ashton is the author of Yours, Mine, and Ours, A Mother's Guide to Blending a Family, but anyone can use it. Reverend Ashton was a high school classmate of mine, and she went on to study human development at Howard University and also earned master's degrees in Christian counseling at Maple Springs Bible College and Seminary and in divinity from Howard University. Today, she is pastor of Union Chapel AME Church in Cambridge, Maryland, and apart from that, she has served as an instructor for other ministers and various other leadership roles in the AME Church. I can only imagine that all of these accolades and duties help prepare and continue to shape her in the role of mother in her beautiful family. And she's here to tell us all about it today. Welcome, Reverend Dana.
Thank you so much, Carol. Yay.
So thank you so much for joining. Should I call you Reverend Dana?
No, just come on, we're classmates.
Okay. So tell our listeners about your early life growing up and what your family was like.
I grew up in a two-parent household. My mother and my father were there. I'm the youngest of four daughters. Mm-hmm. And life was wonderful as far as I'm concerned. In fact, it's funny you should ask that, because yesterday during our Thanksgiving time, one of the things that my mother said was, as the baby, you didn't see a lot of the stuff. So there were some struggles mm-hmm. that we had to deal with, but I never experienced it because I was the youngest. Mm-hmm. It was my father was a pastor. In fact, he pastored for 33 years. Mm-hmm. So that was the norm, the normal mm-hmm. life for us. So there would be times that he would not be there. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. She tried to work twice at Giant, and then she was a crossing guard.
Okay.
So she tried to do, and my father really wanted her home to be with, because he knew he had 4 girls. So
Right.
he was like, no, I think I want you to stay home. And that was my life. And, so my father worked a job as well. He worked at HUD.
Okay.
For several years while pastoring at the same time, and then when he left HUD, then he pastored full time.
Right.
But during that time, he was in and out. Once he started pastoring, we saw him a little bit more.
Right.
But of course, he had other obligations as far as the church was concerned. But it was a pretty normal, crazy, upside down life.
With girls, I tell you, a house full of girls.
Yes.
So, what is your professional background, and what kind of work do you do now?
Right now, I am the executive administrative assistant to the executive team at a company by the name of Security Hunter. Great company to work for. In fact, I think my boss is listening. Hey, Mike. But and that's what I do. But the blessing in that particular job is that he understands what I do as far as ministry is concerned, and is always encouraging me, always asking questions about it. Prior to this, I did work for D.C. government for a period of time, and then I went over to Maryland and worked for Maryland Health Department for a period of time. Especially when they introduced like the M-CHIP program. So that in itself was giving me new insight as far as families were concerned, because there were so many people coming in for services, and I would notice even like differences in cultures and what was expected and the dynamics of it. So it helped me to become sensitive that of as far as the roles are concerned, and who should be doing what, or based on where people were from.
Right.
And then when I left, I think I left Prince George's County Health Department to go into ministry full time, and that's when I got hired. I was working at Bethel, Baltimore, under then the Reverend Dr. Frank Madison Reed III, who is now Bishop Reed. And I stayed there. I worked there as the executive minister until it was time for me to move on.
Oh, okay.
And then I did some other things, and I always had like a heart for children. So for a period of time, I stopped what I was doing and started babysitting, and helping raise children, and just things like that. It's been a good life.
Right.
It's been a good life.
Good. So that kind of leads me to your start in ministry. How did you get into ministry?
I'll be honest with you, Carol. It was not my choice.
Really?
It was, because I watched. I was raised in the church, with my father, and that was our life. That was all of our friends were there. That was our life, and I saw people come in, and it's like, okay, I don't want to make that mistake. And I did not accept my call for maybe 10 years.
Wow.
And it was not until 1999 when I was like, okay, let me go ahead and start this journey. And when I went and told my father, I said that, I believe that God is calling me into ministry. And he said, okay, I knew that. I was like, what do you mean you knew that? Why didn't you tell me that? He said, well, because it wasn't my goal. It was not my assignment to tell you. It's my assignment to confirm it in you. And he said, okay, now you said you're being called to preach. What's your ministry? Because that's ministry is more. Preaching is about 2% of ministry at the time when I thought that was it. And when I left the church, went and got ready to get in my car, and one of the young people from the church pulled up on the parking lot, and we sat and we talked for about almost an hour, and he just poured out and poured out and poured out. He was going through some things at home and through school, and at that moment I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I went back inside. I was like, Dad, I don't need to think anymore. I'm supposed to be in youth ministry. He was like, okay. So that was the beginning of it. And then in the church, in the AME church, there's a process that you have to go through. So I started the process in 1999, ordained an itinerant deacon, then itinerant elder, continued to serve at Bethel, Baltimore. I was at my father's church at Hemingway Memorial for a while. And then when my father retired, I because we're in Baltimore, came to Bethel, Baltimore, and served under Dr. Reed. And there was a point, I was like, I'll do anything, God, just don't have me to pastor. And I remember standing in Bethel and I heard God say, these are not your people. I was like, no. And I knew what that meant, that it was time for me to go. and he was calling me for a new assignment,
Right.
As pastor, and I'm at Bethel Chesapeake City was my first pastorate, and Union Chapel is my second. So yeah, it was an interesting journey, because it's like I knew it, but I didn't want to accept it.
Right.
So every opportunity I got, I denied it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And,
Yeah.
I may have to have you come back and talk about that, because I think that's something a lot of people struggle with in terms of their calling, whether it's ministry or just something else that God's calling them to do. And I know I certainly have done that kind of thing as well, had a Jonah moment.
Okay.
So let's talk a bit then about your experience. Tell us how you first came into a blended family, because as those who read your book will learn that you've actually had two blended families.
I've had two blended families. My first marriage, she was 4 years old when she started living with us. I met her prior to us getting married, and when she actually started living with us full time, she was 4, and it was pretty easy. There was some struggle, but it was some struggle because of the stigma of a stepmother.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I'm not the wicked stepmother. This is not Cinderella. And I even had, the night before she was to come to live with us full time, we were on our way out the door, and the person that she was living with, stopped me and said, put her finger in my face, and I could feel the hair raise up on the back of my neck, like, wait, what? And she said, you better not hurt her. And I had just about enough, Carol. I was like, listen, I've been taking care of this girl. When she comes with us, I'm caring for her. When she comes back home to you, her hair is always done, her clothes are always clean. What makes you think I'm going to do anything now all of a sudden? And I told her, I said, here's the thing that you don't understand. She's not going to be my stepdaughter. She's going to be my daughter, because there's no such thing as step love. You can't half love a child. Either you love them or you don't. So with her being that young, it was easy.
Right.
Because we started a connection, and I think it's in the book. I don't want to tell everything in the book because I want people to get the book.
I know.
But we had our connection, and I don't think this is in there. It was raining outside, and I was standing at the door, looking, and we were at her aunt's house. I was standing at the door, and I gotten down on my knees, and she turned to look at me, and I said, "You see the rain? It's God's way of cleansing the sky, just kind of." And she turned to look at me, and she put her hand on my face.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, we've connected, because she would do things like we'd be walking and holding hands, and her dad and I, and we start singing. And as soon as I would start singing along with them, she would look at me, stop singing, like nobody asked you to sing with us. But that's where the connection started for that. And then I had to thank him for allowing me the gift of helping to raise his daughter. And the same thing with the second husband. With he had 3, and I was already prepared. It wasn't anything brand new. They were just different children, but my job was still the same, and that was to love them unconditionally and to raise them and treat them like my own. And I tell them all the time, I didn't birth you from my belly, but I did birth you from my heart.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
That's important.
Yep.
We'll be right back after this. You love your kids. You do your very best for them. But sometimes it feels like it's just not enough. And you're so sure you're the only one who feels this way. The truth is, you're not alone. It is also true that there are some things you're doing quite right. And there's a community who would love to exchange ideas with you. I'm Carol Maletta, creator of the Parenting 411, a portal for parents where I share information parents need through webinars and masterclasses. And not only that, the parents there support each other on this amazing journey in the Parenting 411 community group on Facebook. I can't wait to meet you in the community. And we're back with the Parenting 411.
So would you say there were some strategies that you had put in place with your first blended family that you carried over to the second that maybe didn't work as well?
there were lots of them. But
okay.
and part of the struggle that I had was the age difference, because the second group of children were like 7, 9, and 12. So they were older, and they had like lives established. But with her, she was 4, so it was just a different dynamic. So the coddling and the loving and the hugging and all that I did with her, I couldn't do as much with them. I mean, I did it anyhow, because I'm going to give you a hug if you're my child,
Right.
And then with them, because they were it was a different life for them. So coming into my life and with family, our family's always been very loving, and everything we do is family oriented. So my son told me later on that they thought that we were putting on a show for them. When they came to spend Christmas Eve with us, he was like, "This can't be real." Because he had never really seen what we do. Our tradition is we go to my parents' house and we read the Christmas story, we sing songs, we exchange gifts and all, and they had never seen anything like that before. Okay. So what I understood, I had to establish something new for them. Okay. So, as far as traditions, I had to show them and bring them in and like take pictures, find ways to keep us all together, make us a family, so that when they walked into our house, they saw themselves. And it wasn't just because I had pictures of my oldest daughter everywhere. I mean, because I had her, and this was 12 years later, 13 years later. So her history was all over the place. So I needed to find something to pull them in. So I took pictures, went to the park. Took pictures, went to when CVS was still doing photos, and you could actually have to go and pay for them, right? not online. And took them to the park, took pictures, and then displayed their pictures, individuals, and then them as the children, as a group. Right. And they got so into it. I was so proud of them. But there were certain things that just didn't work. I had to do more balancing because of again, it was 2 different lives for them at our house and then at their home. And then one of them actually came to live with us. Right. And that's my son. And we had to say, okay, this is different. This is different. And in all of them, I think the connecting factor in all of them was the same thing, that when the children go away and they come back, it's like we have to start all over again. And but you figure out ways, and you take your time and tell yourself, okay, have to start all over again when you're trying to change some things. So
yeah, and I've seen that phenomenon as well, where I have worked with families or parents that are co-parenting, and they'll say, well, when the child goes over to my partner's house, they have different rules and all of that. So we talked a lot about, people have different ways of relating. I mean, as long as you all can agree on some ground rules and all of that. And then when they come back, just remember, well, in our house, we do this. And over in your house, I mean, and not putting down the other house. Right,
not putting it down. It's just we're different. You know, we have 2 different things. And even to say, when they walk in the door, okay, you're home now. Let's rethink. Let's regroup. So it works. It works.
Yeah, and I really liked that story where you talked about the pictures, and of course the pictures are in the book.
Yes.
And I want to encourage you all to go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble. I know
it's at Walmart.com as well.
And Walmart.com. You want the book? It's Yours, Mine, and Ours: A Mother's Guide to Blending a Family by Reverend Dana Porter Ashton. So please check that out while we're speaking. I hope you'll order a couple of copies, maybe some Christmas presents or something.
Excellent Christmas presents.
So pretty early in the book, you alluded to the particular responsibility you felt as the mother of the family to make everything work. Talk a bit about that, because there's some biblical undertones in that as well.
I guess because of the way I was raised, where my mom was home and my mom had the responsibility of raising us, it was like I felt that I had a responsibility. And although both husbands were involved, but I also knew, especially my current husband, I hate saying it like that, my husband Maurice, he was always on the road. He's a driver, so he was always on the road. So and when he came home, one thing that I learned, I want to say it was while I was working on my master's in Christian counseling. or it could have just been a retreat that I attended where somebody said, when the husband comes home, he should be able to lay down his weapons, so he can come home and it has nothing to do with who's in charge or it's about making it work. It's about having peace in your family. So what I would do, I would want them to, where when he came in the house, I knew that he had been out driving and tired, but because of his personality, because of the connection that he wanted with the kids, he would play with them and all. But when he was gone, that would be my responsibility. I would have to do stuff. I would have to take them. I took them. One night we were watching television and I don't even remember, it was a cooking show. Okay. Whatever it was, I was like, get your clothes, let's come on, let's go, put your shoes on. And we took a ride down a Route 1 to Krispy Kreme. Oh. We thought we were doing something. And I took them and they had never seen like the donuts being made. Oh, so, okay. Me, I was like, they're doing that just for you. I called ahead of time. They were like, really, Mom Dana? Absolutely. And they just, they knew. But, right. That's what I did. But I put the hat on them and they stood there and we got donuts and came back. And they thought it was the best thing in the world. And I was like, it's the simple things. Right. But it's finding ways to pull everybody together. It's almost like wanting to, I don't want to say keep the peace because we weren't fighting. It was just different. And I just felt like it was my responsibility because I was the one there. And I've always had like a mothering spirit, a mothering heart. So it was like, well, if I do it for other people in ministry, because dealing with youth ministry, I have to do it in my own home. Yep. And I just have to figure this out because there's no book. Well, now there is, but back then there was no book. Sure. To give you any tips. It was a hit or miss, like, oh, this didn't work out well, let's try this. Or this worked out real well, so we're going to keep on doing this. So I felt obligated to have to pull everybody together and make all of them, including the one from the first marriage, make all of them feel that we're still a family. It doesn't matter what our last name is. Right. It doesn't matter who lives where. When we come, we're still a family, whether we're in this house or whether everybody is at wherever they live. We're still a family. And I just felt like it was my role. And it's not taking away from my independence and all the rest of that. So it was just scripturally, it just felt like that's what I was supposed to be doing. As far as where he's the bread maker, the head of the house. I need to make sure everybody stays together. I need to make sure that this is it. And I'm a peaceful person. So, it doesn't, things that they would do wouldn't get to me. Like I know they would get to their fathers. Oh. So, yeah.
Well, some of the stories that you're sharing show why, because you have in parentheses, but anybody can use it because if you want to have harmony in the family, a lot of the lessons that you talk about could be practiced by any parent.
And it's important, Carol, I think I shared with you just before that it's not just for people who are blending the family, but if you have any role in the blended family, this is good for you because then you're understanding what's happening on the other side. In fact, that was one of the remarks that I received. One of the comments I received from a church member, one of my members, who said, I wish I'd had this book a long time ago when I was on the other side. She was the one, and she said, I would not have been so mean to my husband's wife because I thought she was trying to do something, take my children. And she said, by reading this, now I understand that it's more than just them coming over, but it's where you're also trying to establish your own household in your own home. So anybody can use this for tips as far as family is concerned. So speaking of that, you said that a church member talked to you about her situation. What are you hearing from parents? What are common parents that they share with you? What are common problems that they share with you about their blended families? Some of it is lack of connection.
Lack of connection.
Where they're having a difficult time connecting with the child.
Okay.
Communication, and where it's not always expressed what's going on. Not that we have to give children everything, but the reality is that they didn't ask for this situation. And sometimes they're thrown into it without any explanation at all, without understanding that your life is getting ready to change for good. Some of it is being negative negative talk on both sides. And that was one thing that I didn't allow. You know, I didn't talk negative about the family members because they had to go in between, and the children had a connection with the family with on both sides. And so I was always careful not to put anybody down. And when they would start, if they were angry or, you know, at the parent of whatever it was, all I could say was, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. You okay? You okay? Come on, let me give you a hug." And not fuel the fire.
Right.
Because that's a bad thing. I think some of them has the lack of connection, the lack of communication, and probably just a fear of messing up, fear of not doing the right or not responding the correct way, or fear of not responding in the way that they should respond, and not really knowing which way to go or what to say or how to do. So I think those are probably the top three that I can think of.
Wow. So I can imagine in the beginning that discipline can be a challenge. Talk a little bit about that, because I've read where and have talked with parents, who have children have their are dealing with their spouse's children from a previous marriage, and they're afraid to discipline, or the ones that aren't afraid, they do it, and then sometimes the spouse doesn't like it and all of that. So talk a bit about that.
For me, I've never been. It's my personality is very calm, and I want you to get it. I don't. The only time I go someplace else is when I have to keep repeating myself, and you keep choosing to make the wrong decision. And for the oldest one, with the first marriage, I think I had to spank her once, and I felt horrible. It's like I almost had like an out-of-body experience where I stood above and I could see myself like spanking her, and I was like, oh, nope, can't do that. I can't do this anymore. But she was a reader. She loved to read. So I would say to her, go pack your books up. And she would fall to pieces. Like, so go pack your books up. And then she would try to keep the Bible out. No, that's a book. Put it in the box. She was like, I want to read it. No, pack it up and take all of it. And that affected her more than no television. Or if I say no dessert, oh my gosh, she fall to pieces. So I had to find out what affected her in order to make change happen. With the other set, with the next set, like I said, I was never a hitter. I could look at them, or I could talk to them, and they would get
get the message.
Yeah, they would get the message. Now fathers, on the other hand, someplace told, which is the other reason that I would say, wait, I got him. Let me do it. I got him, because I wanted to protect them. Just because that's what I wanted to do. But I think with both of them was to get to know the children and what affects them, so that even in disciplining, now there may be times, and that's a conversation that needs to take place, not in front of the children and not when it happens, but as soon as you know that we can blend this family, okay, let's talk about some stuff. How do we discipline? Who disciplines what? And also keep in mind that on the other side, that there's another parent that may say, I don't want your wife or your husband discipline my child. Only that's your responsibility. Then that means that now it becomes your responsibility to communicate with the other parent. Okay, so we need to work this out because this is my house, and what goes on in my house, is what I want to keep straight. So that's a communication that needs to take place. But as far as discipline, I think it's important to understand what affects, because it doesn't always take a hand to the mouth.
Right.
Sometimes it's whatever they love, and say, okay, that's how you're going to get punished. Now, don't get me wrong. When she got older.
So let's see. We actually have a caller. Let's see what Linda wants to say.
Okay.
Good afternoon, caller.
Hi, Carol. It's Linda. How are you?
Oh, hi. Hey, how are you, Dr. Linda?
I'm doing well. I'm calling you from Indiana today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'm so enjoying your show.
Okay, great.
I love the spiritual perspective on raising children. And I have a question for your guest.
Sure.
About what do you do when there's a divorce or there's a separation? What do you do from the child that you might be leaving behind? What relationship do you try to keep that relationship? Because I hear some people say, well, I'm leaving, so it's easier just to leave the child behind also. So I just wonder what your guest perspective was on that. And I'm just so enjoying both hearing your show and hearing about your guest's life. And so I'm going to get off and listen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Linda. What a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say what worked for me, and you'll hear me say often what worked for me is, because this is what worked for me, and you can take it and kind of run with that. But I think when I divorced my first husband, the love and the connection that his daughter and our daughter and I had, I couldn't just walk away and leave her behind. And the same thing, I'm still married, but I mean, I can't just walk away.
Right.
And sometimes, in fact, when we separated, he and I had the conversation about her. She was in high school, but it didn't matter. And so I moved close to where he was and where she was in school, so that if she wanted to come over on Sunday or come for the weekend and leave my house on Monday morning and go to school, she would be able to do that, or it wouldn't be a long trip or long drive. And I know it sounds easier to walk away and to leave the child, but it does more harm than you can ever imagine, because the child has already gone through the trauma of the blended family and losing a parent once. And now for you to walk away, it's like they're going through that again. And children are smarter than we give them credit for. And they recognize when something's going wrong and when something is happening, especially when change is taking place. So my suggestion would be really consider or reconsider just walking away. Have a conversation based on the age of the child, based on, with whoever the caretaker, the parent is, the custodial parent. Have the conversation and remember that it's not just that there's more to the separation, more to the divorce than just the two of you if there are children involved, especially if you're connected to that child in any kind of way.
Now I want to back up a little bit before the family is formed, because I know a lot of people, single people that have children, they wonder about dating and when the children should be introduced. What are your thoughts on that?
My personal thoughts are dating is good for single people. Great job. As far as children are concerned, I think we should be very careful before we introduce our children to the person that we're dating until it's a commitment, until there's a commitment. I mean, when you can introduce them, but we should be careful about who we're allowing our children to interact with and to meet. And we joke about it and say sometimes, that's Uncle so and so, that's Uncle so and so, or that's Aunt so and so, that's Aunt so and so. But the reality is that children, they have connections and they establish connections, and when that person is gone, then they're gonna start asking questions. Then as the parent, you get angry at them for asking a question, but you introduce them to someone that it's like, okay, well, what happened to them? Where did they go? What's going on? So I think the longer you can put it off, the longer you can wait, the better. The better. Plus, we just really have to be careful about who we're introducing until we get to know the person.
Right.
Until we make sure that they're safe for our children to be around, to make sure that they're talking what we want our children to hear, that their actions are what we want our children to see. So,
okay, yeah, that comes up a lot, especially in my co-parenting work. So I also saw where I don't know if you're familiar with this blog, Black and Married with Children, but that couple who operates that. I just saw them in an interview, and they were talking about the fact that they have a blended family and finances, and like how you ought to think about that too, or lay down some not ground rules, but just to make sure everybody's on the same page about that. What would you say about that?
I think that with one of the things that one of the challenges that we had to go through was to let all the children know, and I had it more with the second than with the first. But it's to let all the children know that we're not your cash cow. Mm-hmm. And don't try to use that against us. Mm-hmm. If you need something, let us know.
Right.
But don't only contact us when you need something. Mm-hmm. You know, have a relationship. And I can promise you, if we have a relationship, then I can guarantee that I can say, oh, you need? Not a problem. Or I may know ahead of time, just because of the conversation that we've had, I'll be able to say ahead of time, okay, so do you need some stuff for school? Do you need stuff? So what do you want this? So even with the finances, where we did not start like accounts, and I'm sorry that we did not. I wish we had started bank accounts for each one of the children, for them to have something to pull on to once they got grown. So if you're a blended family with small children, it doesn't matter. Start an account, so put some money away under the mattress, whatever you're going to do, but start saving for them now, and then teach them how to be good financial managers.
That's good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what was it like figuring out how to engage with school and all of that?
Oh, let's see. It was trying to get the schools to understand when I would come in, because the second set of children, their mother worked. And there were times that she couldn't, and my husband was working, so there were times that she couldn't make it, and she would say, can you go? Or will you go to school? Sure. So when I show up at the school, I would have to say to them, are you his mother? No. Or I would say yes. Well, that's not the name we have. Okay, I'm his stepmother, but we don't call step-parent. I'm his mother. Okay, well, we need more verification. I'm like, okay. So it was where I would have to ask her to go in and say, okay, could you put my name somewhere, so that when something happens, I can get to the children just in case I need to, or so I can participate. And that's just what we did. If they couldn't go, if neither one of them could go, then I would go. The teachers, I think, were so happy to see anybody come in, as far as parents, because parents don't just drop it anymore. They don't do that anymore because it's no time. It's just other things going on. So I think just the fact that I was there made it a little easier. Once we got past this is who I am, put my name on everything, and so that they'll see that I'm not trying to come and take the children or anything. That's really what worked for us as far as the school was concerned, notifying them what was going on.
Yeah. Well, that's very good. I wanted to, I had a couple of favorite passages. So I liked where you talked about, and I think this comes up a lot with families too, the idea of replacing the other parent and letting your child know that you're not trying to do that.
Right. And that's what I had to tell all of them. I wanted them to know, I'm not trying to replace your mother. You still have a mother. I just happen to be the one raising you right now, but you still have a mother, and you're going to respect her, and you'll love her, and you don't have to choose between the two of us. And that is something that I learned with the oldest child, where with her babysitter, because I went to pick her up before she started living with us. We would do like every other weekend, and so I would pick her up from babysitter on Friday and then drop her off on Monday morning. And this particular Friday, I was going to pick her up, and her aunt was coming out. She forgot to drop her clothes off or whatever, so she was coming out, and she came out the door. Brittany came out the door and saw me. Was like. And then she looked at her aunt and was like, oh, wait a minute. And her babysitter said, you don't have to choose. And I was like, wow, she really doesn't have to choose. And I think sometimes children think that they have to choose who they're going to be loyal to. So they don't want to hurt the feelings of the one that they are closest to, but they don't want to hurt the feelings of the new, because it's all working out for their good. They have two
Right.
places to go. They have to get double everything. So I think that's what it is with children, and we should be ashamed of ourselves if we're trying to make a 4-year-old choose what they want to do. You know, and if they express what they want, or a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, whatever the age is, and then, because usually the way we have them to make a choice is not in a healthy way. It'll be, do you really want to go over there and be with them? Instead of, okay, listen, you're old enough to make your own decision. So tell me, is it okay? Do you want to? If that's what you want to do, is fine. Even if it happens to be 2 weekends in a row, that's what you want to do. Okay, not a problem. I'm not angry. Because honestly, it just meant that it gave me some more free time. But I think that we need to let our children know that you do not have to choose between parents.
Right. Right.
We'll be right back after this. As the saying goes, mother's work is never done, except when it really is. I'm talking about my new book, Mother's Work, Pearls of Wisdom and Gems from My Journey. I share my transformation from an outmanned, overwhelmed mom of twin boys to a parenting strategist and consultant, and being honored as DC Mother of the Year by American Mothers Incorporated. In Mother's Work, I tell you about the 7 guideposts that kept me anchored as I weathered the peaks and valleys of motherhood. Grab your copy at carolmaletta.com/motherswork. And we're back with the Parenting 411.
Now, what would you say are 3 key tips you offer families? If you had 3, the top 3.
I think the first one is what I said earlier, communication.
Okay.
Communication is key. To talk, not where there are different conversations that take place, but then at some point, ultimately one large conversation. The first conversation needs to be made between the parents, the birth parents.
Okay.
To establish, okay, this is what's happening in my life, and this is what's going to take place. Then to bring in the non-birth parents,
Right.
and have, okay, so if it's a birth parents, but even before the birth parents come together, though the blended parents and the birth parent should have their own conversation, and then the birth parents come in and they have a conversation, and then pull in so that they can get to know each other, so they can get to know that I'm not going to do anything to your child, or get to know, this is how, and come in with a sense of calm and a sense of peace, and not attack.
Right.
And then to pull the children in at some point to say, okay, this is what's getting ready to change, because they need to know that. So I think communication is number one, and then for the one who's trying to blend, love them like you had them, love them just like you had them, and let them know that you're there for them as well, because again, they didn't ask for the situation; they were placed in a situation. So love them like they're yours, and then 3, be flexible.
Okay.
Be flexible and laugh. Learn how to just laugh at some stuff. If it doesn't work, just that didn't work, and then move on to the next thing and just laugh. Because it's not that serious, and it's not that serious. Just lighten up some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what lessons have you learned in building your family that transfer over to ministry and vice versa?
I think that it is love. That's the very first thing.
Okay.
And being a loving person and loving others. Because again, this is something that was placed in me, and that's I'm just talking about for me now. That was something that was placed in me, and people want to be loved. Everybody wants to be loved,
right?
And whether they get it from home or someplace else, they want to be loved. So I think that for me, what I and not just in ministry, but also in family, where they went back and forth, is love, is showing love, like genuine love, and then spending time. Spending time. Your presence means more, and I'm not talking about your presence with your face in the phone, but your presence and doing something with everybody, you know, with children, and it's the same thing in ministry, where I have to take time. I heard a pastor years ago say that the shepherds should smell like their sheep, which means that as a leader, you got to be around. You have to understand them, just like with your children. You have to talk to them and understand. Okay, I don't have to fuss at them. All I have to do is say simply, go pack your books, because you know what affects them the most. You know what you have to do in order to discipline them. You should be able to look at your children and say, what's wrong? You don't feel good? I can look in your eyes and tell you don't feel good. You start feeling their head. Go get the thermometer. Same thing when I'm at church, and I can look and say, okay, what's wrong? You don't feel good?
Right.
What's happening? What's going on with you? Tell me what's wrong. So it's just knowing that there's no division, but it's a flow.
Right.
And so I can't say I'm one way here. I'm Aunt Dana here, or I'm Mama here, and over here I'm Reverend Dana, and over here I'm Miss Dana, and I'm over here. I'm the same person all the way around. And when you walk in the consistency and your authentic self, then you don't have to worry about putting on which mask do I put on now, or which hat do I put on now. You just remain yourself the entire time.
Yeah. So how has your family reacted to the book?
My mother was absolutely shocked, because I didn't tell anybody that I was writing the book.
Oh, even the children?
Well, no, I didn't. I told them after I had kind of finished it, because I wanted them to kind of read it and to see how they thought, you know, what they thought. And when it actually came out, and I had the cover of it, I showed it. I had my mom, because my mom doesn't have Facebook, because if she gets on, I'm getting off. But I had my sister. I was like, take this to Mama and let her see it. So my mother looked at it. She was like, oh, because she had on speakerphone. She was like, oh, that's you. Wait a minute. What? What is this? That's your name. Is this you? You didn't? I said, I know, Ma. That's all. I've always been that way. I do it, and then I tell you about it.
Right.
But they were ecstatic. Everybody's been so supportive. My church family, my family, my extended family. Everybody's been so supportive.
Good.
Of the book, and in fact, I have a book signing next Saturday, at my cousin's church.
Okay.
Not About Me Ministry, from 1 to 4. And it's right there on Branch Avenue, where Crystal Skate is.
Okay.
Right, 3106 Branch Avenue. But, you know, when I called him, he was ecstatic. Of course, he's like, you want to preach something too? I was like, no, Ryan, that's not what I'm doing. I'm coming for the book signing. But my entire family has been supportive and you know, telling people about the book. And my cousin said, oh, I was just talking to somebody, and they were telling me they were having a hard time. And she said, I told her, my cousin got a book that will help you. And you know, she gave her the information about the book. So everybody's been so supportive. My work family, everybody's been very supportive of it.
Now, so what other opportunities have you had to showcase the book, and also just talk to people about the concepts that you have in there?
I've had a couple of opportunities. One, actually, which is a great deal to me, is that in the Baltimore County Public Libraries, if you go, my book is now on the reading list. If you look under Blended Families, that was exciting for me.
That's big.
Which also means that I'll be able to do some things there. And then I've had. I really have not. This coming Saturday is my official. As long as the book's been out, will be like my very first official book signing. I've done one at Payne Memorial AME Church, where it was like for a women's luncheon, women's breakfast, and they had me come and speak. So I spoke about the book, and I sold copies of the book. Well, they actually pre-ordered theirs, so I was able to talk to it, where we could have a conversation. Then I did one at Ebenezer, and then I have the one this coming week, and then I did one. I was on a retreat a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, let me just take a few books, and I wish I'd taken more, because I only took like 10 books,
and
sold out in seconds. I mean, while I was talking, people were like cash apping me. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? Cash apping, like, I got one. So there have been many opportunities, and I'm just believing that after this week, I really have to take time and really push, because I've not done that. But to take time and say, okay, let me really look at the calendar and set some things up and go ahead and get these done so that we can get the word out there. And then maybe I'll do a couple of things on a live. We'll see.
Yes,
we'll see.
You should do that.
That's a good idea. Let me write that down.
We can definitely talk about that afterward.
Good.
I probably have some ideas. So now, when you think about your family, everybody, what are you most proud of? All the kids and what you all built.
I'm most proud that we're still a family. I'm most proud that they know whatever they need or whenever they need, they can come to us. I'm most proud because none of my children have ever felt from myself, my husband's, or my family that they were not a part of our family, and that they belong to us, and that there's a connection, and I think that's probably one of the things that they've never felt slighted.
Good.
In all that we've done in our family, and that they're part of us. That they're part of us.
That's good. Now I know you said that you were kind of surprised at first that you even decided to start writing a book and everything.
Had no idea. I had no idea that anybody would be interested. A friend of mine, in fact, I think Dr. Mike Jones on the back. I think that's his quote. His quote.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yes, he was the one that said, "You should write a book. Write a book about what?" He said, "About the blended family. That's a big deal." I was like, "No, I was just trying to keep the peace. I just wanted us to come together so I could have a household like what I was used to grow up in." He said, "No, you don't understand. That's not an easy thing, and people are struggling trying to figure out how to make it work." He was like, "Well, just start with 10 tips." It's like, okay. So I wrote down 10 tips. He was like, and I read them to him. He was like, "That's good. I know you got it, like 10 more." It's like, "No, I really don't." He's like, "Yeah, you do." So I started writing, and before I knew it, the book was there. And I connected with one of my sister friends, Dr. Valdez Snipes, and I said, I know you wrote a book and I need your help. She said, "Whenever you're ready." And she walked me through the process. We got it done. And it was amazing. The group that was helping, when they read it. And in fact, one of the persons who reviewed the book, the script before it became the book, actually, she was like, "Is it okay if I give my remarks in the book?" I was like, "Sure, go ahead." So she's in part of the as far as the quotes.
Sure.
But it was surprising when I actually saw it when it came out, and the number of people that have said, you don't know how much people need this, but and then all of a sudden, honestly, Carol, after that, all of a sudden I kept hearing blended family, and I'm not sure if it was always there, and I never paid attention to it because
you were too busy living it.
Right, I was living it,
Yes.
so it was like it's working for me. So then after the book came out, it's like, okay, this is it.
Yeah, and what I really like about it, because especially when you're having challenges with anything, whether it's your blended family or something, and you want to find a resource, sometimes articles on the internet aren't enough. You need a little bit more,
Right.
but at the same time, you don't want this whole big book.
Right.
I mean, you have so many great tips, and you have a little anecdote to back it up or something like that, but you just get some good actionable ideas from reading this book very quickly, and that's really a gift to be able to pull that off.
Thank you.
So.
And honestly, I don't like reading a lot of words. I don't. So if I want help, I just want to go straight to the point, and I want it from somebody who lived it. I want if you've gone through it, then I can listen to you. I can trust you.
Right.
Don't tell me what you think you know. I want to know, or what you learned in school, because I went to school too. But what I learned in school didn't help me do this.
Right.
I had to walk it.
Sure.
So to be able to just pick something up real quick and to say, what did she say? There it is right there. And the other thing that I did not do, and which shocked a lot of people, is that I didn't pack it, and I know I should be saying this on the radio, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I didn't pack it full of a lot of spiritual stuff. With scriptures where you got to study a scripture because we're talking real life.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people are going to be shocked, like, how are you going to be a pastor and say that? Because we can't be. I wanted everybody to read the book.
Right.
And I didn't want people who are not spiritual, people who are not in church, people who don't walk this journey of spiritual. I didn't want them to feel left out. And really, if you have to look deep in there, because it really is.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, I had to sneak it in, but it's not. And I'm very transparent, and I leave my email address is in the back of the book. My phone number, well, not my direct phone number, but if you want to connect, or if you have a question, I'm just that open to say, okay, what's going on? How can I help you?
Right.
And but don't send me a bunch of foolishness. But if you really, and if you really want help, and you really are seeking to change, or to make a change, or to make this work, because again, these are people's lives that you're dealing with, and it's such a blessing to be able to be a part of a child's journey, as far as helping them to grow up and to be a productive
citizen. That's right. So, okay, so you've gotten this one done. Do you have any other ideas?
No. Actually, I have other ideas, but I'm not sure. One of the things that I wanted to do with this, and the next step, is to actually do a combo. So where I have friends who walk the same journey with blended families, and to get actual stories and get tips from others. And then do another like yours, mine, and ours too, or yours, mine, and ours, or something like that. We are the world. I don't know, but something that's going to go like to the next level, to let people know they're not by themselves. And actually, I'll be honest with you. One of the things that I really wanted to do, which is why I probably kept putting it off, because that's what I had. What I really wanted to do was to have a session or something, a gathering, more or less, a gathering of blended families, where it's all sides, and not where the children are there, but for the parents, the birth parents and the blended parents, just to talk it out. I
think that's a ministry. I really do, and this could kind of be the handbook.
That would be the handbook.
Yes, it would.
Yes, that makes sense to me. But that's one of the things, because. And let that be the beginning of the conversation, and have them periodically, maybe once a quarter. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same people coming back. Right. I think it's enough people, and if the first one is great, then they'll go out and tell others, and so on and so on. So, and we'll, to have them in different locations. I think I'm talking myself into
there you
something.
go. I was getting I'm just listening. I'm like, there you go.
I'm talking myself into something right now.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Yes, I think that would be good.
Okay, let me write that down. A blended gathering. Okay. So anything else you think that's on tap for yours, mine, and ours, or? I think that's it right now. I do appreciate you having me to come on and to share the book. This has been great. I was very nervous. I'm not going to lie. As much as I stand up and talk in front of people, I was like, oh my Lord. But I thank you for because it is like two girlfriends talking.
Yes, I'm glad you came on, especially the day after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
When I first reached out to you, and I thought you were going to say, "Oh no, I can't do. That's the day after Thanksgiving. I'm traveling. I'm doing whatever." And you were like, "You would come," and I was like, "Oh, this is great."
Yes. And I'm hoping that even as we're talking to people, that all the ones who heard about it, that they tuned in with their families. Sitting there, because it is the day after Thanksgiving, but they're all listening at the same time and giving each other the nod, like, you hear that?
Right. And then the beauty of the technology, too, is, we taped it on Facebook Live. Excellent. I'm going to also give you the file from the recording, so you can do what you want there. And then, of course, I'm going to put it on my website. I always upload all of the shows.
Excellent.
And then I'll be making a big announcement about some other platforms. So we're going to let a lot of people learn about this, and hopefully buy the book. And more important than that, though, to really apply these ideas in their families and make life easier for their families. Yes.
Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Parenting 411 podcast. And as always, remember that it is never too late to be the parent you want to be.